Today's video is primarily about defining some key terms that we're going to unpack further in class and that were introduced briefly in your textbook. The first of those is deviance. The word deviance often carries a negative connotation, but the actual definition is simply this. Deviance is a transgression of a social norm. Note that this means deviance is defined in relation to a set of social norms. What is deviant in one context might not be deviant in another context. Further, the severity of the deviance depends on the significance of the norm being violated. Transgressing a very consequential norm may be more deviant than if the norm is rather trivial. Similarly, transgressing a formal social norm will likely carry greater consequences than transgressing an informal social norm. In fact, the most formal type of social norm is what we call a legal norm. When someone violates a legal norm, we call that crime. We'll expand on our discussion of crime in a few weeks. Some examples of deviance include coming to class in your pajamas, burping loudly at the dinner table, standing too close to someone during a conversation, or in other contexts, standing too far away. One of the ways we deal with deviance is through social control. We can define social control as the process by which groups and individuals exact conformity and prevent deviance. This is a slightly more expanded way of defining it than your book uses. Your book defines it as the regulation or enforcement of norms. That also fits. As with norms, mechanisms of social control can be formal or informal. Further, these are things that can happen on the collective or, as this definition shows, on the individual level. Consider some of the examples I just listed. What mechanisms of social control do we have for responding to them? If we burp loudly at the dinner table, someone may tell us we're being rude or gross. If you stand too close to someone, they may back away from you or try to end the conversation and walk away. If you come to class in your pajamas, you may get weird looks from everyone else in class, and people may even try to sit far away from you. Alternatively, someone, perhaps your professor, may directly tell you that you need to go home and change into real clothes before you come back to class. Whether or not these approaches are successful at preventing deviance and exacting conformity to some given norm, they all represent ways we individually and even collectively attempt to do so. We'll talk about other examples in class. As food for thought before our next class, I want to leave you with a question to consider. Is social control a bad thing? The answer is actually neither. Social control is itself value neutral. Remember that the word bad, like the word good, is in essence a value judgment. Sometimes we need social control for society to operate effectively. Consider the example I gave of traffic regulations. And sometimes, yes, it can be oppressive. And sometimes it just is. Who really cares if you burp at the table, right? Whether we find it good or bad may depend a bit on our vantage point. In class, we'll be expanding on this idea a little bit further.